Man.
I love the Rolling Stones.
Q comes
the Rolling
in town,
Stones.
he just lets it go.
All right, welcome back to another episode of Behind the Blind, presented by and protected by TETRA Hearing. Find them online at tetrahearing.com. We had a great time on the Behind the Blind last night. We'll see if we can top that again tonight with Champlin and Bradley on the pod. And I'm sure the conversation can go in a million different directions. All that being said, welcome to for the first time, to Behind the Blind, Logan's father and part owner of Heartland Waterfowl, Bradley Burditt. Yeah.
Slow clap.
Gallery clap and
Clap.
and Champlin, and Eric Champlin. You haven't done one of these before, have you?
Texas.
I have not.
It looks like you haven't ever learned how to put on a pair of headphones. They look really funky on you.
Where'd you go?
You got the R on the right ear.
Yeah, he's got it right.
Yeah, okay, there you go.
Dude,
He went like this. L.
He looks nervous.
Yep. No, that
Are you
didn't work
nervous?
that way.
You don't look nervous.
I'm not nervous.
Hey, you
can't rattle a guy who played D1 football and was had to kick under pressure.
Well,
Bradley was a place kicker for 4 years at the University of Missouri.
that was 60 pounds ago.
That's all?
Yeah, that's
hey,
it.
so
That's it.
to go off last night
Yeah.
a little bit,
Okay.
back to that subject a little bit.
Which one?
I was filling him in on
The swizzle,
podcast last
the
night,
swizzle stick.
and his first reaction was, "I literally have one of those on my desk. I was playing with it today."
I don't know that you would want to tell
do.
people that you're playing with a swizzle stick.
It's a great conversation piece. It breaks the ice, and anybody that comes in my office.
But who were you having a conversation with when you were playing with it?
He was like this.
This thing's gone south quickly.
Yeah, it has.
Well, we're going to get into some of your moments being a collegiate football player at the University of Missouri here in just a little bit, and how this whole thing kind of came together with your involvement with Heartland Bowhunter and Heartland Waterfowl. So we'll get into that in a little bit. But Champlin is on the pod for the first time, and thank you for being here.
Yes, sir.
Champlin was kind of an outside contributor to the podcast last night. And was finding out that the swizzle stick is actually more affordable, or not more affordable, is more expensive than an actual coon hide.
Yeah. Yeah. There's
good margins if you take into the penis factor.
My granddad was a fur bearer, and he's telling me that these things are like worth $25.
$25 we found out.
Yeah.
And he says
eBay.
you can only get $2.50 out of a coon hide. I'm like, dude, it's like $27.50. Come on, do the math.
Right, you do both. All right, so let's talk about today's hunt. It started off great. I really thought we were going to burn them down with the way they flew out earlier than I thought they were going to, the way they decoyed the way they did, and I thought, man, this is going to be an incredible morning. And not that it was a bad morning, but it didn't live up to the initial excitement.
They didn't really fly much. Most of them didn't come back.
Well, the ones that flew did not fly to water was the problem. They flew to feed, and then it was follow the leader, and then at that point, you can't compete with live birds.
But the first four groups that did come by us,
man.
I mean, moneyed up, came straight in.
Sucked in.
No questions asked, right to us.
Right.
Yep. But there's just not a lot of birds around. It's
There
just
really
that
isn't.
it's just a weird time right now. It's
Weird weather.
But what?
weird weather. The birds. I mean, honestly, it's been weird weather since we've been here the last time. Right before Christmas, that heavy cold storm came through the whole country, and things just haven't really been the same since. It's just there's just not. We drove around and covered a ton of ground tonight, and I bet we saw 500 geese.
But there's a change coming.
What, you're here?
I'm here.
The Goose Magnet.
How did we know?
Hey, ask this guy right here. Have I ever had a bad goose hunt with you?
You know why?
Because you're with me.
He just literally waits until, hey, tell me when it's going to be the best hunt. And I'll show up.
Right.
I'm surprised you didn't show up tomorrow morning at about 6:50.
Well, that could still happen, actually.
If the decoys get out at 6:45, I'll be there at 6:50.
Yep.
Sounds about right.
Yeah.
Sounds about right.
It's called experience.
So where you guys were scouting, you didn't see a whole lot of birds tonight.
No, I mean, we really didn't. The ones we did see, there's 150 on a field, which isn't anything like spectacular, but you can make a hunt out of it. They're coming in small groups. You might be able to shoot it. You only need 3 or 4 groups, right?
Right.
But it's just the pure numbers around the entire area. I mean, even back home last week, we saw smaller numbers than we typically
For sure.
see. So there's obviously something going on right now. Whether those birds are, pushing back north already, some are to the south, whatever. But they're not in our area whatsoever. I mean, we're only 2 hours away from home.
Yeah.
And the normal numbers that you see through this flyaway at this time of year, it's just not the same.
That's right. So hopefully by the time, and always get this screwed up, DT, is the hunt, by the time they hear this podcast, will that hunt be available on the YouTube channel? All right. So when you get done watching this, make sure you go back to the channel and you thumb through and find that hunt. It was not a bad hunt by any means. It was cool. We had Gus Bader from TriStar Arms with us. Ember, who is Brandon's daughter, came out. She's like 12. She had a great time. Everett was with us.
No,
so
she was sick today.
Sorry. She was, she played hooky so that she could join us on a Friday morning hunt. And then Brandon sent her back to school. Anyway, so it was cool. We had a good time. It just didn't live up to what we thought it was going to be based on how the birds flew first thing in the morning. Excuse me. So where Brandon and I went out tonight and scouted, and there were like 3 different pockets where we found a lot of birds. And the one that we're likely going to hunt tomorrow probably has in the ballpark of 600 to 700 birds. It's a little weird. I know I've never hunted this particular field, but you guys have in the late season before, and it's typically a really, really good field.
It's one of the first fields right outside of town.
I mean, the turnpike is right there.
Yeah, it's typically really, really good when it's really, really cold because the birds move into town and they start filtering out of town. Now, that's not really what we have right now.
Some will be coming from town.
But, yeah, the town birds are the largest concentration right now. So, obviously, this field's a go-to. There's a pond in it. We've debated hunting the pond or hunting the field. We're deciding to hunt the pond. We're going to decide to hunt the field tomorrow based on the weather, based on the moisture that's in the field. So
wait, we are hunting the field tomorrow?
Yeah.
Oh, that changed.
It changed like 8 times.
Yeah, it changed like 8 times. You just run around for the
I guess I wasn't around for that conversation.
Yes, you were. It was an hour and a half conversation. It was like a roller coaster, back and forth.
I don't know that it matters either way, but yeah, we're hunting the field.
Okay. So I guess because I don't know, I'll ask, the reoccurring theme about, picking the water over the field was because the wind is not going to be all that great tomorrow. It's around like at shooting time, 4 to 6 miles per hour from the south.
Yes. But it's also supposed to warm up and be very warm tomorrow. So the thought is if those birds come out and everything thaws out, that the fields have water in them, all the waterways have water on them, and maybe the birds, because the birds haven't been going to water the last couple of days.
Well, and those birds have...
They were in there all day today.
Yeah,
in the last 2 days as well.
So that's the thought. If those birds go to feed first thing in the morning, they might not come to the water after that. Because the water we're hunting is their midday loaf. It's right off the field. They're not roosting there. They're literally just going to loaf on that. You would have to wait for them to go out to feed, or you might catch some water-to-water birds first thing in the morning. But if they don't leave the field because they have enough water in the field and the waterways and whatnot, then you're kind of screwed, right?
The other thing that I noticed in our scout was in watching these the last 3 days is that if you can imagine, there's like 4 different fields. If you can imagine like a waterway breaking up each section, so imagine 4 different fields. It's one field really, but I mean, it's broken up into different sections because of the different waterways and like fence lines or whatever. They're bouncing around. They're not just staying in one particular field. So throughout the day, you might check it at 10 o'clock in the morning, and then they're in the north field, and then by 3 o'clock in the afternoon, they're in the south field, and so they're moving around a lot, which then gives us hope that if we are going to hunt the field, regardless of what they do at first, there is an opportunity that we could pick on them a little bit later.
Yep.
So
I mean, it's a crapshoot either way, right?
It really is.
I mean, who knows if we're making the right decision or not, but what do you do?
You got the magnet with you.
So we should be done by 9:30, right?
No, I'm thinking 8:45, 8:30 at best.
Hey, I said if we have a limit by 8:30, we're going to Taco Lucha.
Going to take the 1 hour trek.
If we do that, I'll buy.
You're going to take the hour trek to Taco.
You are going to buy, or you're going to buy with the Heartland Waterfowl credit card.
6 and 1 half.
No, it's not. You probably have more money in your account than the Heartland Waterfowl account.
We can go to Taco Lucha, right?
I mean, if we get done in a reasonable time, yeah.
All right, I'll hold you to
that.
it.
That's
Raspberry black bean.
Because as it looks right now, we are planning to hunt Super Bowl Sunday morning.
Yeah.
And hoping that we will be able to be done at a reasonable time so that we can get all packed up and then drive the 2 hours back home to be with our family and friends to watch the Chiefs and the Eagles in the Super Bowl.
We're going to slaughter them tomorrow so I can go home and smoke up some brisket for Super Bowl Sunday.
There you go. So you're just down here for one hunt, huh?
Dude, that's all it takes.
Okay.
We film a whole episode in one day.
No, I know that's not realistic, but no, I haven't been out all year. I'm just glad to be here. And
yeah, that's uncommon for you.
It is. It is.
Why is that?
Been working too hard.
Okay.
In other areas. That's what it is.
All right. So that is the plan. Make sure you go check out that video. We got more action coming for you throughout the rest of the time that we're going to be here. So another 2 hunts tomorrow morning. The following morning, we're going to do one more behind the blind tomorrow. We'll detour off from the hunting a little bit. Brad, who is Logan's father, has been a part of Heartland Waterfowl kind of behind the scenes, but you've seen him here and there throughout the years on a few different episodes. But this thing kind of all originated from your involvement with being with Heartland Bowhunter.
Yeah, I mean, it was something that kind of just accidentally happened. And, I grew up in the hunting industry.
Mm-hmm.
My father and granddad had a sporting goods store when I was little. Shot my first deer when I was like 5 years old, and we had a lease at Swan Lake my whole entire life through the sporting goods store. And so we would always go up there and goose hunting. And Swan Lake back in the day in Middle Missouri was known as a goose capital of Missouri. And that was like one of the biggest waterways. And of course, as time evolved, all these other little watersheds developed all across the country, and Swan Lake just kind of went away.
Mm-hmm.
It's still there. It's not like what it used to be, but I've always grew up in the hunting space and waterfowl. And duck hunting is just, and goose hunting has just always been a passion.
The duck hunting, I like that you led with that part. The duke hunting is the best.
Yeah, it is. And, I can recall as a kid going out and laying in a cornfield watching a duck feed and watching them feed into me and taking my double shot 20 gauge and popping up and shooting and just hoping I get something.
All right, so give us some dirt on Logan.
I got to tell you, my favorite story with Logan is, Logan's like 4 or 5 years old. And the very first hunt I took him on. And
he's 4 or 5, you said?
Oh, he's probably 5 years old.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I drag him out in the field behind behind a local lake, and there's a big dam, and these birds were feeding off this lake, and they were going over to across a buddy of mine, and I'd been there past shooting some birds. I'm like, I'm just going to take him one night, and I had 4 black and white silhouettes. It looked like real estate signs. You cut them out, and there were silhouettes, and
do you remember this?
Yeah.
And I took him and put him out in the field, and the birds started coming off. And there's this big multiflora rose bush in this fence line, and we were set up into this, and I had the 4 silhouettes out there, and these birds come over, and Logan's and he's got a little cork gun. He just pops up. He just pops up, like bam, 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 and these birds flared. I'm like, yeah. And I have this big old double barrel 10 gauge, and the birds.
Oh, it's here.
It's here. I have it.
Hey, will you grab that? Grab that. Bring that over here.
And this is an heirloom. It come back way back in the family. But anyway, these birds circle. There's 4 honkers, and they come back over, and they set on these 4 silhouettes. And I take this gun right here, And I dropped
Look at
two.
that.
I dropped 2 of the 4, and Logan thinks he kills them all. it was so sweet. But this gun right here is
That's an elephant gun, is what that is.
I mean,
That thing weighs like
I've never
25
seen
pounds.
another one like it. But I grew up as a little kid going to Swan Lake in Brunswick, Missouri,
Mm-hmm.
and I've seen this gun roll people in the field. I mean, literally knock them down. But it's kind of it's
That can be perceived a couple different ways.
Roll people in the
Yes.
field.
It has. I mean,
He wasn't past shooting geese. He was past shooting
Wait.
trespassers.
my granddad had a neighbor named Jeff. His name was Jeff Trussell, and we were hunting all day, and we like 4 birds short of our limit, and we're coming out, and all I do is pack decoys and stuff, and I'm coming back as a little kid, and birds come out and they're flying, and Jeff grabs this gun and he shoots, and it first one just rolls him over back on the ground, and
Oh,
he pops
man.
back up. This is a double trigger gun.
Yep.
He pops back up and he shoots another one, and he falls back on the ground. He kills 2 birds.
Wow.
And with this gun, and this is one of my favorite memories ever. And this guy was 65 pounds soaking wet. I mean, and he was probably 70 years old when he pulled the trigger on this gun.
Wow.
And it's because my granddad loaned it to him, and it's just kind of special. So
What kind of loads did you typically shoot out of those?
oh
Or
gosh.
out of that?
Back in the day, you could shoot lead, so we were shooting probably number 6.
Okay.
3-inch lead. Out of
Wow.
this thing. Yeah. So, but it's been around forever, and it's just I mean, it's a tank.
When you say back in the day, what year would that have been?
Oh, this is in the early 70s,
Okay.
late 60s.
All
Yeah.
I got out of that story is that a guy pulled the trigger twice and he fell on his back twice. It doesn't sound fun.
Yeah, I don't think I would like to shoot that gun.
But you gotta understand. I mean,
That thing packs a punch. We get it.
Yeah.
The guy
I know.
fell on his back.
back in the day, people didn't have a lot. I mean, we grew up living for the Christmas goose. My grandmother baked the Christmas. It was tradition.
Yeah, because you could
having-
only shoot one, right?
You could, and that was it. So it was kind of it was about killing for eating in a lot of ways.
Sure.
So, but it's just different times.
So you grew up when you were waterfowl hunting, shooting lead. When do you remember that switching over to steel?
Oh gosh, now you're dating me, but that's
Well, you already did that.
yeah. I mean, Ronnie, that was probably what in the late '80s,
Was it?
late '80s.
80s,
Yeah,
if
probably.
Gus was here, he could tell you the exact
Yeah,
date
he
and
could,
time.
he could, but-
Probably.
but, yeah, but it was just different times.
What was the feedback among waterfowl hunters when it became mandated that you couldn't shoot lead at waterfowl and everybody had to go to steel?
Oh, there was a lot of pushback.
Yeah.
There's no question because it was like different. I mean, it's like wearing your comfortable shoes. You don't want to change, and nobody wanted to change, and so it was different, and nobody liked to do it. But I think
The decoying aspect now is way different. Back then, it was a pass shooting game.
Yeah.
right? Like
that is true. So when
so
we first
shooting steel is a huge disadvantage versus shooting lead when you're pass shooting.
For sure.
So you got to understand, when we first started going to Swan Lake when I was a kid, there was 2 lakes. There was Swan and Silver, and there was a lot of farmers on the exterior of the conservation ground, and they had blinds. And so you would go up, you'd eat breakfast at 4:00 in the morning. You go out to your blind that you'd rented or leased or drew for the day, and there was decoys typically already preset, and you were pass shooting. You were either pass shooting or you were lucky to get decoys.
You were setting decoys to pass shoot. You weren't setting decoys to
No.
decoy birds.
So we had a farmer that had a field, and in front of his field was a levee, and beyond that levee was a river, and beyond the river was the refuge. And so the birds would come off the refuge, and they would fly over the levee, and that's where the shooting was. So we were there for like 18 years in a row, and took us like 18 years, and our blind eventually ended up on the levee. So we were the king dingling. I mean, we were shooting the birds coming off. We got to shoot pass shoot the birds before they even got to where the fields where the decoys were.
I was actually telling Mendoza at the hunt.
That was my next question.
about the 55-gallon drums that people put up in the trees.
And that's another thing. So
Well, explain that story for the people who are watching.
So you could only you're testing my memory now. So you can only shoot so many. Oh gosh, it was a big deal that you could only shoot 3 shells, obviously. And there were people that were taking their plugs out of the gun. So conservation was set in the back of the fields, and they would count your number of shots. And if they heard 4 shots in a row, they'd be in your blind, checking you into that. And so I remember as a kid, behind us, there was these big cottonwood trees, and 50, 70 foot in the air, they would mount these 50-gallon drums and have steps going all up to them. People would go in setting those, and just to pass shoot the geese coming off the reserve.
Wow.
And I've seen
blinds have advanced and evolved a bunch in the day.
It was crazy. It was a big deal because these birds would migrate to different spots because there wasn't a lot of water back then. And you knew what their path was going to be, and people and they would set and they would shoot these birds out of these trees in these 50-gallon barrels, and it was crazy. And it was just like, oh, they're sky busting. You would sit there and watch, and you're like, holy cow, they're shooting rifles, and basically they would knock a bird out, and it was just, and it was crazy, and wasn't any fun after a while.
Yeah,
but
Logan was talking about you shooting double T's. Did you
3.5-inch tee shot
or tee shot?
Yeah, I brought a box with me this week. I have a box. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That would be pretty neat to see. You gonna break that thing out tomorrow? You think?
I have a box of tees.
Well, are you gonna hunt with that gun tomorrow?
I can bring it out tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah, it could be fun.
Just in case we get a high flyer up there, we're like, what the heck? Give her a try, Brad.
Yeah. It could be fun, Ronnie. I'll let you shoot it. I want you to.
I'll let Champlin. Champ likes to make those high, long shots.
Champlin's going to pull both triggers at the same time.
Oof.
Oh, you better have some concrete in your boots.
Justin did that years ago before the show started when we lived together. He had that over and under that he had, and he was shooting 3.5-inch double Bs and came up on a flock. And his was just a single trigger.
Went off both.
It went off both, and it put him right back on his back.
Just like that old man.
Yep.
Oh, and it split his thumb open.
His name was Jeff Trussell. I'll never forget it.
Jeff Trussell's he was on his back twice that day.
Yeah, he was. Apparently,
he was. It was comical, and we limited out.
Wow,
but it was a big deal. I mean, they wanted and needed the meat, and my grandmother adamantly said we have to have a goose for Christmas. Every year.
Wow.
Yeah. It's tradition.
Before we get into your football career, what's you were talking about, so that was pretty standard then, that nobody decoyed birds back then. It was pretty much just a pass shooting game. Is that accurate? And so when did that game change to where decoys and actually scouting, finding the X, and getting birds to backflap in the decoys?
Well, I wouldn't say that it was avoiding the decoys, but the circumstance, and there was a lot of people that surrounded the refuge back then, and so it was mostly a pass shoot because
it was a firing line.
They were going somewhere,
Yeah.
And so like they would trade water, and there was big water here and big water there, and if you could get in between that, fine. And if you caught a feed, you were really pooping in tall cotton.
Pooping in tall cotton, he says.
In tall cotton.
All right.
Yeah, so.
All right. Anything else from you guys on that subject matter before we move on? You got any questions for your pops?
No, I feel like you're just jonesing for the next question.
No, I'm just
waiting.
Yeah.
Licking his chops.
Not really.
Here comes Notre Dame.
No. I was not going to bring that up, but since you did, no, you're from northern Missouri, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and you went on after a very prolific high school career where you played every position. You were the punter, you were the kicker, you were the quarterback, you were the linebacker. You played every position, right? That's how I heard the story told.
It's pretty close.
So anyway, you got a opportunity to go play football at Missouri, right?
I did, and. Yeah.
Was that like a goal of yours through your high school career, that when you graduated, you wanted to play D1 football at Missouri?
It was a goal, but it seemed so far reaching because I thought, it's like, it seemed like such a big environment, and I'm from a little town of 2,200 people.
Mm-hmm.
And, but I was very competitive. And if somebody told me I couldn't do something, that really, really motivated me.
Yeah.
So it was far reaching, and I worked hard at it, and I had an opportunity, and
you did it.
I took advantage of it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Was your goal to be a kicker at the level, or did you want to play a different position and that was just the best fit for you?
I was an old QB, but and I thought when I was at Missouri I could throw the ball as good as anybody, but that's not what anybody saw me for. I got an opportunity to try out, and it was as a kicker, and it just,
so you weren't recruited.
I was softly recruited. I wouldn't say I was recruited.
Did you have any other D1 opportunities?
Yeah, I had a couple.
Where?
Oh gosh, in the South, and well, I say D1. It was 1AA and some stuff. But yeah, I had some people invited me to walk on. I was like, yeah, I was an old homebody, you know, from a little small town, and you know, if I took a vacation, it was Lake of the Ozarks, and it was 2 hours away, and that was a long ways. But so I wanted to stay home. I was and close to home, and that's I got the opportunity to walk on. I got invited to walk on, actually from a gentleman who was a Big 8 or Big 6 back in the day, track star at University of Missouri, was very good friends with the recruiting coordinator, and he got me an opportunity to work out in front of them, and they invited me to come and try out.
So a couple of questions. What years were you at Missouri?
82, 3, and 4.
Okay.
A long time ago.
And obviously the landscape of recruiting at that level has changed a lot since then. At that time,
how much money did you make?
Yeah, what was your NIL deal looking like?
You know, it's funny. I got my first per diem check after we went to the Holiday Bowl playing against BYU and Steve Young, and my roommate was the starting quarterback.
Okay. And what was his name?
Brad Perry.
Okay.
And Brad and Brad ended up getting my per diem check, and he cashed it, and I never got my first check.
Oh man, he stole from you.
Well, yeah, I did. So it was all good. I was just happy to know I qualified.
Sure.
And so that was my first check. But you know, there were guys across the country getting paid, just not in NIL fashion.
Right.
Just under the table.
Yes.
Yeah. What did that look like in the low to mid 80s?
You know,
early 80s, 70s.
I was around athletes that told me stories and heard stuff, but you know, it's all hearsay. But there's some wild stuff. But look, to think it didn't happen is turning a blind eye. It happened. Did it happen
at Missouri?
Oh yeah. Yeah, there's guys that got taken care of in different ways.
Gotcha.
Absolutely. But, you know, to what degree? It wasn't public knowledge, but you just knew.
Yeah.
You just knew. Yeah, absolutely.
So getting back to the landscape of recruiting back in that day, would the team be comprised mainly of people of the region, or did you guys have recruits from all over the country?
No. Oh, no.
And the reason I asked that was because you grew up in a small town in northern Missouri.
And I got to tell you, that's one of the things that I take a lot of pride in, because I've got friends that are from all the way from Florida to L.A. to this day that I played ball with. And so, just depending on your staff and where they were good recruiting at, or they knew the areas and stuff, we had a lot of guys from Texas, Florida, JUCOs in Southern California and stuff. I have guys all across the country that I've stayed in touch with all the years, and that's the thing I cherish the most, because we get together from time to time. We tell a lot of stories.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, a lot of fun.
So, what was the most memorable game you ever played in?
Yeah.
Good or bad?
Oh, geez.
Let's start with good. Let's start with the good one.
Oh, good. I mean, I had a lot.
K-State.
Was it the K-State game?
Actually, I won my starting job against K-State on a miss. 52 yards, my first kick in my collegiate career.
I actually saw a highlight film of that on YouTube where you thought you made it and you're jumping around like Martin Gramatica, like you made it, and then you were pissed at the official because you thought you made it and it was missed.
So Ronnie, we left Columbia, Missouri to fly to Manhattan, and it was.
You guys flew?
Everywhere. Other than going.
You flew from Columbia to Manhattan?
Absolutely.
Wow.
And the only place we did take a bus to Lawrence, but that weekend.
That doesn't make any.
That doesn't make any sense to me.
I didn't make it.
Okay.
One more hour.
But yeah,
Right.
one of my first trips was to Manhattan, and it was a stormy weekend, and the jet never got up to altitude, and it was like flowing at cloud level, and it was just doing this the whole
Turbulent the whole way.
whole way. And I can remember, this is honest God's truth. I would line up an extra point in pregame, and I was putting the ball 10 yards outside the right upright, and it was bowling wide left. That's how stormy it was that weekend.
Okay.
And so it was like 4th and 32, and K-State's quarterback, and we're up 7, and he throws a TD pass, and then you guys, tied up.
I love that how you said you guys.
You guys.
Because I'm a K-State
we
fan.
come down, and this is my first collegiate kick. It's 52 yards with no time left over, and it's in a gale whirlwind, and I missed by a rotation of the ball just going across the crossbar.
Wow.
In dead center, and I got the job, and that year ended up, I don't know. It was half a season I kicked.
Was it because of the strength of the leg that you got the job? I mean, you missed the kick.
No,
so how do you win the
80.
starting job missing a kick?
Because
Same way you want it.
no, I was an 85, 90% field goal percentage kicker.
Gotcha.
And it was nobody kicked that far.
That's why I'm asking. Yeah, it was just the strength of the leg.
Yeah, and prior to that, there was guys that missed from a whole bunch, and anyway, I ended up for the next 2 years not missing inside of 48 yards.
Okay. So K-State is the good memory, the most memorable.
That was the start, actually.
Mhm.
And I know you got fond memories.
Well, it is what it is.
That was the start.
We kicked your ass this year.
Hey,
Okay, huh?
Read between the lines.
What?
No.
Logan wore your jersey this year.
I know he did.
The Holiday Bowl jersey.
He got my tickets, and I told the people a couple weeks before. I said, they said, "You come to the Missouri game?" I was like, "Nah. Well, I'll be here, but I gave my tickets to a Missouri fan." And he's like, "Are you serious?" And I said, "But he went to Kansas State, but his dad went to Missouri, so he's got to wear that jersey." He's like, "I get it. That's all right."
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that Holiday Bowl had to have been pretty good memory, right?
It was great memory because, we go to San Diego and it's BYU, Steve Young.
Were you guys playing at Qualcomm?
Yes.
Qualcomm Stadium where the Chargers used to play?
Well, Jack Murphy.
Or Jack Murphy. That's right. That's right.
Jack Murphy back in the day.
That's right.
Yeah. It was great. I mean, at the time, I didn't realize this, but our offensive line coach, we had a team meeting. He goes, This is one of 2 bowl games in the whole country that after you get through playing, you get to stay overnight.
Oh.
And the other one was the Orange Bowl.
Is this going to lead to a Tijuana story? I just feel like you went to Tijuana that night.
We'd already been. We went the night before. It's not gonna, no, Ronnie. It wasn't going to lead to a Tijuana story because we'd already
been to Tijuana. Okay. So what happened in Tijuana, Brad?
Oh my God!
Come on, tell me a story about Tijuana.
This has got to be pay for cable.
Well,
no, there's a lot of good Tijuana stories, but we did go to Tijuana, and it was went down to Revolution Boulevard. I will tell you this, and this is as dirty as I'll get. So, in 1980 is when 60 Minutes did a story on 83.
Okay.
82, 83. January of 83, I think it was. They did a story on steroids in college football. Okay. So they showed a history of where all this crap come from.
Which was Mexico.
On Revolution Boulevard.
Okay.
Where a bunch of guys on our team went.
No way.
Yeah. So
did you make it? Were you in the shot?
I would not take I wasn't in the shot. I wouldn't even take an ad.
I'm talking about in the video. Did they have footage of that?
No, but we had guys that did steroids.
Okay.
It just a fact of life. They did it, and it's not a good thing. And but it was unlike I peed in bottles for guys on our squad. Okay, that they started testing that year we got back, and I peed in bottle for guys.
Did the 60 Minutes story, is that what sparked the testing?
Come on in. You're going to need to take a seat, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Really?
It did. It was kind of right. So
I'm
I
Chris
saw
Hansen
that. And
from Dateline
look,
NBC.
we had a guy on the squad that was stationed in San Diego, and he was starting. I won't tell you what position. He was a starting lineman for us, and the dude was so big he couldn't even reach up and button his helmet. I mean, he bruised his bicep, and they taped it up. And he couldn't even reach, and he would locker next to me. He said, "Hey, bro, will you button my helmet?" and good dude. But I can also tell you some sad stories. I know guys that took it, and I had a good friend who passed away from Lou Gehrig's disease.
Okay.
And he fell off his raft in his pool and drowned.
Oh man.
And he had a history with it, and I can't help to think that
had something to do with it.
Had something to do with it. So yeah, back in the day, it was, you thought it was maybe something to do, but it always bothered me.
Okay, so let's get on to, since Logan brought it up.
Oh, now it's my fault.
You brought it up. You had a great career at Missouri. I mean, at one point you were, or I mean, I don't know since then, but like the highest percentage kicker, or did I not hear that right? At one time you had some sort of record, or you had done something to put you up in the top tier of kickers at the university, right?
Yeah, I was probably, at one time I was top 10, top 6, 8, I don't know, scoring, but dude, that's back when we ran the veer offense, and we scored 14 points a game.
Okay.
Yeah, so yeah, I had a good career. But I'm not even anywhere on the record book.
Gotcha. Okay. But
yeah, it was good.
But the Notre Dame game is obviously what we're coming to, and you handle that with such grace. I mean, it's really remarkable for me as a friend to see how well you handle that. Even your own son gives you crap about it. So maybe kind of, for those who don't know, tell the story about the big game against Missouri. Notre Dame, national televised, opportunity to win it. You missed the field goal.
Yeah, so
you just told the story. You just told the story.
Well, but it
you done missed it.
It bothered me for a long time, but
how long do you think?
Oh, how long? I don't know.
Does it still bother you?
No, it doesn't bother me. Actually, it's been a very positive in my life.
Explain.
Well, I mean, you just learn from adversity, and I worked hard to that point. I can't explain what happened when it happened. I just remember, it's the last second. We're down 2 points.
Was this your senior year?
It was my senior year.
Okay.
Yeah. And
was it the last game of the year? Kind of set it up.
No.
Was it early season game?
It was national televised, Notre Dame.
Hey, shut the hell up. Yeah, no, we back in the day, I mean, we were on national TV, I think my junior, senior year, nine games of the year. And
wow.
Probably, I don't know.
And that's a big deal back then because, there was only a few networks
ABC,
that would, all right.
ABC Game of the Week a bunch. And I just remember, I was so pissed off after missing that kick. I remember we had a sports information director, and dude is about 70 years old. His name is Bill Callahan. Just the best gentleman ever. And he comes in the locker room, and he sits down to me, and he puts his arm around me. He says, "Brad, I need something from you." I'm like, "What?" He goes, "I need you to go talk to the press." And I'm like, and you could heard a mouse fart at 400 yards in that locker room after that game.
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Oh, I don't want to do this." And he puts me in this room, and it's about a 12-by-12 room, and it was all I could do to get in the corner. And the light's brighter than that damn one shining on us right now. And the first guy, and there's about 15 mics, and then, you see ABC, ESPN, all this shit going on. I'm like, and I'm a little redneck from 2,000, people in Midtown, Missouri. And some guy goes, and I'm just kind of pissed. He goes, "What happened?" And I looked at him, I said, my holder put the ball on the tee upside down.
Yeah, you really were quoted saying that, huh?
And Sports Illustrated,
Oh.
Sports Illustrated quoted, and the room went quiet. And it was like, what? I'm like, come on, dude, man. I don't know what happened, and it was just a moment, and it just.
So
just
you don't recall what happened there?
I recall every second of what happened.
Well, so what happened?
Oh,
Let me ask you this before you answer the question.
Yeah.
Were you nervous?
No.
Did the impact of the fact? I mean, you said you were on 9 nationally televised games.
No.
So it had nothing to do with the hype. It had nothing to do with Notre Dame. It had nothing to do with. I mean, what happened?
He hadn't missed inside 40 in the last 2 years. His career at Mizzou, he hadn't missed inside 40.
That's huge.
48.
Okay, sorry.
Still, that's a big deal.
How far was this one? 33?
9.
39. So what happened?
So we're driving down. Missouri had recruited a kid. It was all this gee whiz kicker out of Texas, and he ended up being an All-American. He was very good, and I was a starter. And the kid had not taken one rep with the varsity squad.
Okay.
All right, with the first team, not one. And it wasn't even wasn't in my ballywick to think that he could ever step up in front of me, because I'd had a great career. I mean, there's no reason to unseat me to this point. And so we're going down the field, and we have a 52-yard field goal to go out. And I start out on the field, and I get 10 yards on the field, and the head coach calls me back, says, no, we're going to let this
the new guy kick.
I'm like,
right.
And I'm like, it just stunned me. And I come off the field, and I'm looking at my backup quarterback, and I go, Kerry, what's going on?
Yeah.
And about that time, I get a slap on my left shoulder pad, and I get spun around. It's the head coach. He says, you get your goddamn head up, son. I'm the one that makes the fucking decisions around here.
Oh.
That's his exact words.
And what coach was who?
Warren Powers.
Okay.
And so Kerry, my quarterback, looks at me. He says, his eyes go, he's like,
yeah,
what's going on? And he calls one more play, and our starting quarterback throws a out route to our tight end, and he completes it, and it goes to, I forget how many yards, and to a 39-yard field goal. And he grabs me. He says, you go fucking kick it then. And I was my mind.
He got in your head.
Yeah, he scrambled, and I went out there, and I just missed. I don't know what happened. I have no idea what happened. And
did you keep the starting job after that?
I did.
Okay, cool.
I did. And I can't explain it.
Did Coach Powers have any conversation with you after all of that?
Yeah, yes, he did.
Do you care to share what was said?
So yeah, I will share this, and I've shared it with 2 people since that.
You've never been interviewed about any of this? This is the first time on this podcast that we're going to get this information.
I will share it. You're the third.
Okay.
So he calls me in on Sunday morning into the locker room, and my special teams coach, it was a guy named Steve Miller. He was out of Hazelwood Central in St. Louis, and Coach Powers says, Brad, if I ever had to do that again, I'm not kicking that situation. And I was pissed. I said, I'd hope the hell not. And he goes, what do you mean by that comment? And I said, Coach, I'm a senior for you. I've never missed inside 48 yards. And my career, and I rattled off whatever my stats were back at the time. And he goes, he looks over the assistant coach, and he says, Steve, you know we were going to kick Tom in that situation. And my special teams coach looks at him. He says, Coach, he's never taken a rep in practice. My special teams coach stood up for me.
For you, wow.
And he didn't know what to say. He looked at me and says, let's go to practice. And that was it. So it was
nothing was ever said after that, huh?
You know,
didn't he recently pass in the last couple of years?
He did. So life got better after that. So it's been 7 years ago. Me and another kicker who preceded me, we threw. Our Coach Powers ended up with Alzheimer's, and it bothered me for a long time. So we threw a reunion for him in St. Louis about 7 years ago, and he was mid-stage Alzheimer's, and so we made amends.
That's cool.
It was great.
That's cool.
It was great. We ended up with something like 95 guys showed up for a reunion, all but about 2 or 3 of his coaches ever was at Missouri, and we had like 15, 18 guys that played in the NFL that showed up. And so we made amends, and it was great. It was really great.
The best part about that story, aside from the fact that you made amends with him, is that kick did not define your entire career. You were able to keep the starting job. You were successful after that. You made kicks. Like, you finished with having a great career at the.
Oh yeah, it was great. You know what? It's not about being in front of people. It's about the people you meet, the relationships you keep, and I miss being in shape.
Well, I know that this particular podcast, Behind the Blind, is typically about waterfowl hunting, and sometimes we'll talk about swizzle sticks, but but it is important for those who are watching to understand that Brad is a huge integral part of Heartland Waterfowl and its success with everything that he does behind the scenes. He handles all of the accounting and the invoicing and everything that we do from the business side. We work very closely with him, and the guy really asks for nothing in return. He's just honored and proud to be a part of this. And naturally, it's close to you because Logan's involvement. But, I think your story is fascinating, from not only having the opportunity to play football at the D1 level, but to go through all that adversity that you went through, and then to turn out to be as successful as you have since then.
No, it's been fun. And you guys do such a great job. I'm just thrilled with what you guys are doing.
Well, we couldn't do it without you, man.
Tomorrow's his first day hunting this year with us.
I know.
First day.
Well, we're going to see how well you kick with that 10 gauge at outside 48 yards or inside 48 yards.
I can tell you the 10 gauge kicks better than I do.
He's going to be like, hey, Ronnie, can you pull me out from up on the mud? I'm on my back over here.
We appreciate you, man. Yeah. Thank you so much for everything that you do for Heartland Waterfowl. I don't know. I think that could probably wrap it up for tonight.
I love you guys.
Hey, thank you for being vulnerable and sharing all of that. That was very interesting. So we'll be back tomorrow night for our last episode of Behind the Blind from Tornado Alley here in Kansas, as we finish up the final week of the goose season here in Kansas before we take a couple months off, and then we'll go to Saskatchewan for the spring snows. But we're close to wrapping up season 10 of Heartland Waterfowl.
2 more days of the season.
That's it.
There ain't no
Let's go whack them tomorrow.
It's just starting, Ronnie.
It's just starting?
Yep.
Oh.
It's starting.
The Goose Magnet's here.
The Goose Magnet is here. Logan Burditt, Eric Champlin, Brad Burditt. I'm Ronnie Phillips. Thank you, TETRA Herring, for sponsoring Behind the Blind. Check them out online at tetraherring.com.
Good.